to stage 2 of the Troopy build. Now, as you'll see, again, doesn't look a lot different, does it, on the outside? That's because it's not. But what we have done is some work on the inside, so let's take a look. So that's pretty much the inside done now. So I'll talk you through what we've done and where we left off in the stage 1 episode. So you might recall me talking about trying to make as much space as possible, and just starting at the back we had the crash pad bag, which I wasn't sure what I was going to use it for, but it's ended up being the home for all my compressor bits. So the hose, we've got the ARB electronic tyre deflator, which is really nice. I've got a little pump, just a small pump, that's to pump up the airbags. Then I've got my tyre deflator, and then just another little pouch with all sort of hose connectors. So in the last Troopy build episode, I didn't have any of the attachments. I only had the compressor itself, but this thing works amazingly. I'm so happy with it. Just plug it all in. It's nice and accessible at the rear of the vehicle, which is perfect for the type of stuff I want to do in it. Don't have to have the bulky bag. The last time I used to have the compressor in a bulky bag. Just turn the engine on because it's all hooked up to the crank battery. As we said before, we've got the little switch to toggle the compressor on in the cab. And there we go, she's good to go. So as I said previously, storage was critical. So obviously the fridge is in this part here, and then we had that storage around the back. You'll see that I've got 2 different mattresses, and that's a stuff up, and I'll get to that a bit later. But we've got plenty of storage underneath, so the mattresses just come off. You may recall I spoke about I had this extra bit, this access panel, so that just removes. And then we've got plenty of storage inside. We've got our recovery gear, that type of stuff. So I've used as much space as I can. There's storage in there. And then going around the front, we had the 2 crash pad bags. Now I've decided again, just to keep these, they don't come out that easily, so I didn't want to use them for sort of everyday use. They've ended up being the home again for the rest of the recovery gear, so stuff that I'm not using that often. So as it turned out, I didn't make the sort of the gap quite big enough for the bags, so they do go in, but they're just a bit more tricky to get out in and out every day. It will probably sort of fray and tear the bags eventually, so I decided I will use those obviously, but they'll be for things that I don't use that often. So all the tools, recovery gear, all the bulky things that I also want to keep down low, the jack, all of that kind of stuff now sits behind there out the way. We've also now got the fridge working, which is really cool. It does seem to work pretty good. I did say before I was a bit worried not having the angle, but the fridge, it does work well. Also got this neat little holder that I got for another Team U special. So we've got the pen knife, got the cigarette lighter, a couple of pens, and then this flint and steel sort of spark tool, so that sits nicely on there as well. So I'm pretty happy with that at the moment. Another thing that works quite well, if you recall from the last episode, to make this bed up, I'm not going to do it today, but the rear seats, the Troopy seats, fold back, and then there was a gap sort of in between there. And the good thing about that gap, it's the perfect size for my angle fridge, so that on an extended trip, if we wanted to have an additional fridge or a freezer, I can actually store that in that gap and have an extra fridge as well, which would be really good. So I can actually use the angle and the BCF fridge if I need to, which is awesome. So to get the fridge and all the electrical gear to run, obviously the first thing that had to go in was the battery, and I opted for an AGM battery. I couldn't afford a lithium. I would have liked a lithium setup, but I just couldn't afford it. So I ended up with a 170 amp hour AGM battery, which is a pretty big battery. It's sort of this size, a slimline one. It weighs a ton. That's the only problem with AGM. That's why lithium would have been nice, but it's just the cost. But I managed to get it on a Black Friday sale for 50% off with all of the DC to DC charging kit and all the other stuff as well. So the MPPT and all this other gear. It was a package down to about $900, so 50% off. So I just couldn't sort of turn that up. But so yeah, that was the first thing that had to go in. And then once the battery was in, I could then build all the stuff around the battery. As I said before, I kind of make it up as I go along, and that's really so that I can just sort of maximize the space as much as I can. Another feature I wanted in this build was a 12-volt oven, so I've ended up with a large Travel Buddy oven. I'm actually cooking my lunch today in that, so that's the first time it's been used. So the reason I wanted an oven was really so that it gives me that option when I'm driving or I can't be bothered to cook. I can easily just cook a pie or something frozen, something easy. Particularly on route somewhere, it'd be just easy. Chuck a pie in a couple of hours before we arrive at camp, and then once we get to camp, dinner's ready or lunch is ready or whatever, without the need to cook anything. So obviously with the oven, I was concerned about it getting hot around the sides, but when you look in the manual, what it says is it's just the door really that gets hot, which is why it's got this sort of warning label on it. And what it says about the sides and the back, because of the insulation, that it's just warm to touch. But even with that in mind, I still decided to put some heat shield in around, because I was worried about heat sort of transferring down onto the battery and just in general just generating heat behind the oven. I wasn't too comfortable with that, so I ended up just buying some exhaust wrap that's for motorcycles. That the idea is you wrap this sort of fabric around the exhausts, just so that you don't burn your legs really. But I just sort of lined the sides around the oven on this sort of cabinetry, just to double up for insulation. Then once the oven was in, the next job was then to start attaching all the electrical gear. So with this sort of kick-ass set that I bought, there was a low voltage disconnect, so that will disconnect the battery once the battery gets to a certain voltage. Once it drops to a certain voltage, it will just switch off to save this getting really sort of depleted of power and then sort of stuffing the battery up. And then we've got this MPPT, so this is sort of the controller where all the power comes from the crank battery, and this is what sort of distributes the power into the second battery. And it also doubles up. I've also got a solar input as well, so I can attach a solar panel. So I'm not going to have a solar panel on the roof of the Troopy. I'm not going to do that this time, but what I will do is plug. I've just got a solar blanket that just connects straight into there if I need to top the battery up whilst I'm at camp as well, and that works really well as well. Once we've got all our electrical components in, we need to then sort of distribute our power, and I'm doing this through this drifter console, which was pretty cheap. Again, it was about $100. You can see it's got those 4 cigarette inputs, so the 12-volt cigarette inputs. That's what the Travel Buddy's connected to at the moment, and the fridge. Plus we've got some Anderson plugs on the side, and then there's also some USB ports as well. It's also got this nice little gauge here, so I can see how much power I've got left, 12.4 volts, but that is with the oven and the fridge running at the moment. So once the oven switches off, that will go back up again, and then yeah, this little panel just removes. That's where the USB inputs are. So from the stage 1 episode, I also spoke about the light that I've got up here. So we've got this light now, and that's all wired up and works nicely as well. Oh, that's cool. So with the electrical gearing and it all wired up, the next thing was to build some sort of cabinetry, really just to hide everything up, just put it all away. And then I've ended up with a sort of small work surface as well on the top, which works really well. It's the same sort of rubber checker plate that I've used elsewhere in the Troopy, but I just think that just finishes it off nicely. It tidies all the cables and the fuses and everything behind. One thing I will add, all of the electrical stuff that I've done has got separate fuses as well, so it's all fused as well, and it's all hidden and tidied up behind behind the cabinetry. And then finally, we get to the bedding. Now the bedding was expensive. So I looked around, I went to Clark Rubber initially, I gave them some rough dimensions. Probably, it was really just to get some pricing early on before I'd measured it out properly. So it's probably slightly bigger than what I've got at the moment. But to get sort of nice thick 100mm foam upholstered was a crazy amount of money. It was, from memory, it was just over $1,000, which just seemed absurd. So I just couldn't justify spending $1,000 on foam. So I looked around and I ended up on Temu, and this is where this one came from. And I'll just roll the clips for when this arrived with my first initial reaction. Hopefully this is not a cock up. It looks pretty thin for a bed, but we'll see. Hopefully it'll pop out and be a bit bigger once we get it open, but we'll see. Right, moment of truth, if it actually fits. Oh, it's too narrow. Oh, bugger. It's too narrow. That's annoying. It's too narrow. Typical Temu. It's actually quite nice, but it's just too narrow. Maybe what I could do is order another one to go along there, because the length is perfect. It looks pretty good. It's just too narrow. So it is annoying because I gave them the right dimensions, and I suppose this is the risk when you use things like Temu, but I actually really like the look of it. It's just they stuffed up the dimensions. So it came too short, obviously, 160mm too short. So the length is perfect, it's just the width isn't right, so I've got this gap. So then, stupidly, I reacted too quickly and I ordered another bit to fill that gap. But what I should have done was just order a whole new bit, because it would have actually been the same price. But I reacted a bit too quickly. I thought, you know what, I'll just get a smaller bit, 160mm wide, to fit that deficit. And then that came. And then the problem with this one, it's not the same height. It's 80mm, this one's 100mm, so I'm 20mm short. And that's the kind of stuff that really, really irritates me. I suppose that's the risk you run when you opt for a cheaper option, and it was significantly cheaper. So it ended up being $160, the original cost for this one, plus the additional bit that goes once I extend the bed, which is perfect, by the way. That one fits perfectly. It's $160 including postage, with about 5 other sort of small bits that I also ordered from Temu as well. So sort of $160 compared to $1,000, there is a risk there, but it still doesn't work properly, because then this one was stuffed up. So look, I haven't used it yet. I think it's pretty comfortable, so I think I won't have a problem using this. It's just whether I can handle the look of it. So there are a few other things I could do. I could just get like a black yoga mat or something, 20mm mat, just to prop it up, which I might try that first, but I'll see how I go. But I suppose this is the risk that you run. But I think, other than it not being the right size, I'm actually really happy with it, because I think it looks mint. The colour's good, it's well made, it's comfortable, all of that stuff I like. It's just this bit's just going to bug me. I just know it is. But look, I suppose that's the risk you run when you try and do things a bit on the cheap, I suppose. So that's pretty much stage 2 of the build. It is good to go now. I haven't used it since the last episode, since the last stage 1 episode. That's the only time I've actually been out in the Troopy, because it's just hard without the battery and the fridge and all the gear. But I can use it from now on, and it's actually having a lot more work done next week. So after next week, it's going to start to look significantly different. And that was just a bell one off, so that means my lunch is ready. So I've just cooked a pie for the first time in the travel buddy, so I might get stuck into that in a minute. But so yeah, this is stage 2 of the build. So hopefully you got something out of this episode if you're building a Troopy or any kind of sort of car or van conversion or 4-wheel drive conversion. There might be some little things that you might take away from here. yeah, I just didn't want to do the normal sort of traditional Troopy builds. I wanted it to be a bit different, a bit sort of fit my needs, and it's largely there on the inside. There are a few other things that will happen at some point, but the main sort of four-wheel drive mods are happening next week. So stage 3 of the build, this car is going to look significantly different. And with that, I'm going to grab a chair, a drink, and have a look at my pie. So let's see what the pie looks like. Yeah, I need some oven gloves or something. I've just got this old towel. Probably. Oh yeah, it's cooked. Awesome. Drink. Just a quick one this episode, just to go through stage 2 of the build, test out the oven. Oh yeah, that's going to be brilliant. So yeah, I'm going to tuck into this pie. As I said, hopefully you got something out of this episode, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Take it easy, ballers.